Hello Munchkins and viewers alike, it's me Munchie and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about what's behind me here, which is the Kaytee Crittertrails and how we can refurbish them. So maybe you're one of the victims of the Kaytee Crittertrail trend that's gone on for 2 decades worth. Oh my god. And these enclosures are marketed towards hamsters, gerbils, and mice. But unfortunately, they're just way too small, their materials are very breakable, and they have not in 2 decades updated any of their designs. They keep remarketing the same thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? They break all the time. Anyways, these are enclosures that you will see in America mainly. They are so bright and colorful, and these cages are obviously, as you can see their color design, marketed towards kids because, God, do I want this in my bedroom? No, it looks disgusting. This is 2021, and yet they are still making small, bright enclosures that are just disgusting to human eyes pretty much, but kids are like, ooh, bright, colorful, I want to pay attention to it. They're basically trigger cages for kids where they're like, I see something shiny, I want it. And I have been a victim in the past growing up of these death traps. Because Kaytee keeps making these enclosures and because we're still seeing new time hamster owners quickly learn that these are inappropriate cages, how can we get rid of them? How can we reuse them? What is it that we can do that we don't have to keep filling up our landfills with this stuff that Kaytee just won't stop shoving out? So let's try to repurpose it. And that's today's video. So thank you guys for sticking around and let's jump into how we can repurpose them so they don't have to end up in landfills and we can extend their use, just like reduce, reuse, and recycle. I don't know if these cages are recyclable or not. They are made of plastic, but some plastics aren't recyclable. So the first method of reusing this enclosure that you unfortunately have purchased from a pet store, and maybe it extends beyond the return policy of 60 days with the receipt to most big chain pet stores or just pet stores in general, and you have to keep it. This is a good holding container for when you're doing deep cleans of your main enclosure. Say for instance, if you got some gerbils and you have to take them out of their enclosure because you're just not comfortable with leaving them inside the enclosure as you're cleaning, or you're using chemicals, maybe water vinegar solution, you just need to deep clean that sucker, place them in a holding container, and these cages are good for that. And a holding container, you don't need anything but bedding inside of there. If you want to take a big handful or a big scoop of bedding and place inside of here with your hamster while they wait 10, maybe even 15 minutes for you to get done with the cleaning, now that's perfectly all right, and this is suitable to be using for that purpose. The second method would be for traveling with, and my most favorite Kaytee Crittertrail to use for traveling is actually one of their smallest. The other ones are classified as carriers, but this one isn't really classified as a carrier, but it's so perfect to be using for a carrier because it's so boxy. It's very easy, it's easy to take apart. This is the one that doesn't come with any super accessories or big tubes or anything. Literally, this is all it comes with besides a wheel, a dish, and a water bottle, which the water bottles are always going to be attached from the back. This you could use, for instance, to travel long periods of time with. And if you're going to be staying overnight, it's a good idea to pack in that bedding, give them shelter, food, and water. So these are just really great for if you're going down the street to go visit your veterinarian, or good for long travels, say for instance, if you're visiting family across the mountain, across the hill, across the sea, you name it. Well, I wouldn't think you would take your hamster across the sea, gerbil or mouse across the sea. My point, it's like crossing the river through the woods to grandma's house, you go with your ham. And it's enclosure, temporary enclosure. So that brings me to the third use of this enclosure. When you're traveling, you might need just a temporary enclosure, especially when you are visiting family. So if you are visiting family and you are going to be staying for a couple nights and you honestly cannot bring your 40-gallon breeder tank along with you, or maybe even the Preview 528, even though it has handles, might not fit in your car if you're packing a lot to go see your grandma, your auntie, your cuz. Enclosures that are a little bit bigger might be better. And so the main body type that I typically would use would be something like this, where it is not a 2-story or even a 3-story sucker like that thing over there. Yeah, I see you eyeballing that. If you're wondering about that and where that came from, I did an intake story about the Frankenstein enclosures. So there's going to be an iCard up at the top. You're welcome to click on it to find out more about how that came about. And for overnight stays and long extended stays, you want to use something that will provide more horizontal space. And unfortunately, if you do take along your Syrian hamster, also known to some pet stores as a teddy bear hamster, a panda bear hamster, but in other terms, golden hamster is correct. But Syrian hamsters, if you bring them along, you can't fit the really big wheels in here, so you gotta just make sure you add as much enrichment as possible, especially if you're not able to find a babysitter. And unfortunately, there's been horror stories when I hear people talk about they left their hamster with the babysitter and their babysitter killed their hamster. So, if you are also going to be traveling with gerbils, I would honestly say take a 10-gallon tank for gerbils. Don't leave them in here for long periods of time because you're aware gerbils are very excessive chewers and they chew extremely well to the point where they will take apart this enclosure and try to sneak out of it. For every knob, nook, and cranny they can find in here that sticks out that they could start chewing and making a hole through. So it's not a good idea for gerbils long periods of time, but for mice, definitely they can be in here, and hamsters for overnight stays. And like I was saying before, you do not want to be traveling with a vertical enclosure. This thing will topple over in your car. It's not good. It usually would come with accessories like this where there's ledges or there's long tubes, and it's just a hassle. You have more weight in the car, and because they don't benefit from vertical space, for hamsters, mice, they definitely can benefit from vertical space, but for hamsters in general, something like this to be bringing along, it's just extra weight and it's not needed. So keep something low to the ground, but still long enough for them to be in comfortably while you're visiting. The fourth method would be to only use these enclosures for their accessories they come with. So when it comes to accessories, you're going to be looking at tubing. Now these tubes are actually very dangerous for Syrian hamsters, so please do not hold on to these tubes to be repurposed in your enclosure for your Syrian hamster because of how small the hole is right here. But they are okay for mice and they are okay for dwarf hamsters. However, if you start to see them struggle, especially for those winter white Hungarian hamsters, then you might not want to be using these specifically. And it's unfortunate that Kaytee has made dangerous tubes like this where hamsters can get stuck and end up dead. That's why I call these death traps, because people are just not aware. Some of the accessories they come with that they vaguely say marketed towards hamsters, which there is 5 species of hamsters: Roborowski, Syrian, winter white Hungarian, Russian dwarf hamster, Campbell's Russian dwarf hamster, and the Chinese hamster. Not all of them have the same body type and size, and Kaytee has obviously ignored the warning signs if they keep making these gosh darn accessories, but these are perfectly okay, like I said, for mice and dwarf owners. Unfortunately, you just can't repurpose all the accessories they come with, and most of the times they come with really pathetic, breakable accessories that are made from plastic that cannot bend. The only one that can bend is this one, but I think this one was actually from a Kaytee starter cage. It's not a Crittertrail, so we could just ignore that, and basically these are the only 2 that you will most likely see in your Kaytee Crittertrail. They're trash, they're garbage. You can't even have some of the hamsters even run on these like Syrians. It's not worth it. They're noisy, blah, blah, blah. But like I said before, you can repurpose the water bottle it comes with. And if you guys are using a food dish and trying to keep, like, say for instance, vegetables out of the bedding because they are moist and wet and they might cling to the veggies if outside of a bowl, it's just a good idea to have a bowl on hand. Also, these are really good for when you're trying to measure how much food your hamster is taking in or eating. Same for mice. I would not give plastic to gerbils, so ignore that. And if you're wondering, because you see so many Kaytee Crittertrails on my bed here, how much tubing I have collected over the years, I have one bin, but then I have this big thing right here which has a ton of tubes inside of here. Not just Kaytee, but also from Tiny Tails and the Ovo Crittertrails. And honestly, I just hold on to a lot of them because what if one of the tunnels breaks, or what if it gets chewed up a lot and then I end up replacing them? You would need to hold on to them for replacement parts, and that's number 5. If you do happen to use, say for instance, this as a travel carrier, the 5th reason to hold on to almost anything it comes with is due to it breaking so easily. So if I am going to be using this, which I have, you can probably see some bedding in here, as a travel carrier or a holding carrier, what happens if, say for instance, the tube breaks? I would have extra tubes so I won't have a problem. What if the rim is chewed up, or if it breaks, I have more rims, that is no problem. What happens if the top breaks? Not a problem. I actually have more tops in one of these containers that I just shared with you here, and it has a top and a bottom from a Crittertrail that I was definitely not going to be using due to how much damage the metal retained, but the plastic pieces for the tray and the top were perfectly fine, and it was the same size as this. That's why you will probably see enclosures that are like Frankenstein's, where you clearly see that they've added or taken away stuff from the Crittertrail to make it their own thing. I know it's very weird for me to talk about Kaytee Crittertrails in a positive light. However, this is actually a good awakening video for some people, where they don't realize that the more you buy, the more Kaytee thinks that they need to keep producing this, and the more they make money from this. So unfortunately, a lot of times they don't make replacement parts themselves, and the only parts you can really buy are the ends here. Yes, you can buy more tubings, but they want you to extend, and so I try my best not to fill up our landfills by reusing this, and if I have a need for it, I will store it. And there has been times when I have stored parts from other enclosures and then I needed an exact part, and voila, I had it. I didn't have to go out and buy something. I actually had it on hand. Now the 6th method to using the Kaytee Crittertrails is actually putting an enclosure within your enclosure. Yeah, trippy. Why? Well, if you are having a terrible time when it comes to sand baths, or maybe you're trying to hold up your water bottle, or if you're trying to hold up a very big wheel and it could be mounted to bars inside of, say for instance, a very big 200-quart Sterilite bin cage, or maybe a 40-gallon breeder tank, it is a good idea to hold on to at least part of your Kaytee Crittertrail, where you can actually just place this inside the enclosure for them to use. It's their own special compartment. You can probably even stack the bedding up to the ceiling on, say for instance, something like this, and then place it inside your enclosure so that you can have a very deep area inside your enclosure without the hamster or the mouse pushing it from one end to the other. I mean, they still possibly could, but if you had a dedicated area to do whatever you want inside the enclosure, this can actually be an accessory to a main enclosure. Now, with that being said, I do not recommend using the method of connecting tubes from your main enclosure to a smaller enclosure like this, because a lot of the times you are putting holes in your bin cages where you can't reuse that bin again once you do that, or your hamster could possibly chew around the hole you made in the bin because maybe your tube is just a little bit too far to the left and there's wiggle room to put their teeth inside that hole and start making a little sawing motion at the bin itself. You're basically destroying your main enclosure that you're supposed to be keeping secure. So DIYing your main enclosure further so you can actually just attach accessories from the outside to the inside of it can be dangerous. And it also can be dangerous if you're using a Syrian hamster and you have these tubes connecting for this enclosure to, say for instance, a 40-gallon breeder tank. I don't like it. I really don't like it. And I've seen people doing that and I'm like, why? It's not good. There's so many problems. And when I see someone putting tubes inside of a 40-gallon breeder tank and they had a Syrian hamster, they can climb up those tubes. It is not good. It's a safety hazard, so please don't. Oh, I don't like it at all. But if you're literally just placing this enclosure inside and putting stuff inside of it, like sand bath, or putting super amounts of bedding inside of here, or putting a really cool, neat hide, or just doing something interesting inside your main enclosure with it, go for it. Hang your water bottle, hang your wheel. Sometimes people don't have bottle guards to hang on their tanks, or their really tall bin cages, so this is a better option. But again, don't put this inside of an enclosure of a gerbil. So that is the end of the video today about how you can refurbish and reuse your enclosure that you mistakenly might have bought due to false marketing, advertising of these being appropriate for hamsters, gerbils, and mice. And unfortunately, if you do have, say for instance, enclosures like this that you've been using for a while, and unfortunately they break, you would have to get rid of them. And I do not know, because I've looked in the past before and have not found appropriate answers, that I don't know if these can be recycled. There are plastics out there that can be recycled, while others say please don't throw in your recycle bin. So at the recycling facility, they might get these types of enclosures and then would have to sort them out further into their possible yes you can recycle or no you can't recycle pile. Try your best out there to see if you can be self-conscious of what we're putting back into the environment, but unfortunately we as a whole can't really stop a big corporation. I mean, we can definitely complain a lot and see if changes can be made, but unfortunately we can't just tell the big corporations like Kaytee, hey, halt on making these because they're terrible for our environment. It's 2021, you should be thinking a little bit better about it, but they're not. So it's not really a consumer's fault if they happen to have, say for instance, a lot of Kaytee Crittertrails like say me here, which I guess I can make another point for a number 7 mention. So number 7 would be educational purposes. Do 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 do. Like this video, like this video, like this video, like this video, right here, here, here. You see me talking about it right now in front of you, and I hope you enjoy this video. Because I'm losing it a little bit. So hey, I hope this helped you out because I'm here for you guys. Oh, you guys, I would like to say thank you, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you guys so much. I hope you got the message there at the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!